Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me now? Okay, so they're telling me I won't get any feedback from you, so they're going to go check. But I was partway through the presentation when they come in and said it wasn't working. So this isn't Monday, I guess, but it's Thursday. So my name is Mark Neff. I'm with the Fire Service Training Bureau. I'm going to be talking about overhaul and its toxic effects on firefighters this morning. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to assume that it's all working. A little background on myself. Again, I'm with the Fire Service Training Bureau now. I serve as the Fire Service Technical Assistant. I'm a retired fire chief from the Oskaloosa Fire Department, currently a captain on the Cedar Township Fire Department located in Fremont, Iowa, and I am a hazmat technician with the Mahaska County Hazmat Response Team. Our course objectives this morning are going to be, we're going to be talking about, be able to identify which toxic gases and other particulates that are present during overhaul operations after we've done fire suppression. We're going to talk about the health risks involved to those firefighters when completing overhaul tactics. We're going to talk about why it's important to maintain quality air within the overhaul area. Starting to wrap it up, we'll talk about why we need to keep ourselves in good physical health as it pertains to overhaul operations. And then finally, what are some leadership responsibilities to help us make sure that we're doing things properly and safely during the overhaul operations. Risks involved. At any typical residential house fire, you run the risk of being exposed to more toxic atmospheres than in any typical hazardous materials event. Why do I say this? This actually came up, I was sitting in on a class with Chief Hergenreiter from Fort Dodge Fire, and he brought this up, and it really perked my attention when he said that, and it just kind of stuck with me. And I really got to thinking about it and accepted what he said as being truthful. And here's the answer. At a typical hazmat response, we're generally dealing with one or maybe two products creating the event. At a typical residential house fire, there'll be present asphyxiant gases, irritants, and particulates. That typical structure fire may generate literally tens of thousands of toxic chemicals and gases in varying levels. So when we think about that, here are some of our, just 4 right now listed out of toxic gases that are present at house fires. Carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, carbon dioxide, and then lowered O2 concentrations. Any one of these can get us in trouble if we don't have proper respiratory protection or air monitoring occurring while we're working in those atmospheres. We wouldn't consider about working in any of those atmospheres if we were dispatched as a hazmat team, but I think we've got a little bit complacent in the fire service. We'll go ahead and do this during overhaul and maybe not think too much about it. And I believe it's a tactic we really need to work on in correcting. So carbon monoxide, let's talk about it for a little bit here. Colorless, odorless gas present at all fires. IDLH of 1,200 parts per million. Our symptoms are headache, tachypnea, which is abnormal rapid breathing, nausea, lassitude, which is weakness or exhaustion, dizziness, confusion. I'm sure some of us can relate to that just this morning. I know I was when I showed up late here and then nothing worked. Carbon monoxide is produced when fuels such as gas, oil, coal, wood do not burn fully. So it's a product of incomplete combustion. Hydrogen cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide is a colorless gas, rapidly acting, highly poisonous gas or liquid that has an odor of bitter almonds. Its IDLH is 50 parts per million. That will give you an acute inhalation. It's reported, and you'll note I got most of this information right off the CDC website. So 45 to 54 parts per million can be tolerated for 30 minutes to 1 hour without any immediate or delayed effects, while 110 to 135 parts per million may be fatal after that same 30 minutes to 1 hour. So it doesn't take a very large increase in parts per million in the same time frame for hydrogen cyanide to become lethal. Hydrogen cyanide gas is formed when natural fibers such as wood and silk, other synthetic polymers such as polyurethane and nylon are not completely consumed during a structure fire. Burning plastic releases all kinds of toxic compounds such as carbon monoxide and cyanide. Here's where we get into trouble. Repeated chronic exposure is a known carcinogen, increasing the risk of cancer. This is something that we really have to start concentrating on. Studies are coming out, and unfortunately, some of us that are a little higher in the age group were a little lackadaisical about, let's get this air pack off, and we can get through this. It just stinks a little bit, but unfortunately, we're finding out now that sometimes we're our worst own enemy here, not doing things the right way. Carbon dioxide, again, a colorless gas. It is an asphyxiant. It has irritation of the eyes, nose, and throat at high concentrations. Its IDLH is up there at 1,200 parts per million, real close to carbon monoxide. High doses above 40% can cause decreased motor function of the hands and feet. So again, your dexterity is going to start being affected if you get into those higher concentrations. How can we check this stuff? Well, we wouldn't consider not taking a 4-gas monitor with us into a particular hazmat incident, but how often are we getting that off the truck and using it during overhaul operations, doing a little bit of air monitoring to see if we can change that? If we want to get people out of the air packs, we have to make sure that the quality of air in the environment they're working in is adequate. So when a fire burns in an enclosed room, oxygen in the room is gradually used up and is simply replaced by carbon monoxide. Lowered oxygen concentrations. Again, we just talked about it with carbon dioxide. When the fire consumes the oxygen, carbon dioxide levels increase. If we don't get proper ventilation in these rooms and remain ventilated, we're going to have lowered O2 levels. This is something our 4-gas monitor can pick up relatively easily. And again, this lowered oxygen level will have a decrease in your level of consciousness. All right, let's list out some irritants here. We'll talk about hydrogen chloride. We can tolerate up to about 10 parts per million of hydrogen chloride, while at 70 to 100 parts per million, we're going to have to leave the room because it really gets intense. Irritation, coughing, chest pains. Concentrations you know, if we're in there for an hour or so at between 50 and 100 parts per million, starts to begin to get dangerous to life and health. We get up as high as 1,000 to 2,000 parts per million. We're going to be IDLH even for a very short term. So we're going to get hydrogen chloride from burning PVC, in addition to phosgene gas that will also come off of the burning PVC piping. Hydrogen bromide. This is caused by burning of sanitation and cleaning supplies. Breathing this bromine gas could cause you to cough, trouble breathing, headache, irritation to your nose, mouth, dizzy, watery eyes. Doesn't take a whole lot of this to make our body know that we're into somewhere we shouldn't be. We talked about this, you know, in hazardous materials operations. We don't want to use our senses as the meter. We want to make sure that we're using gas monitors and making sure this stuff is not present, or we need to have our SCBA on during overhaul operations. Hydrogen fluoride produced when lithium-ion batteries are burned. Well, we all know cell phones, a lot of our computer stuff run lithium-ion. Again, this stuff is all going to be present if we get the right combination of equipment in a fire. Here's some other possible irritants that are listed out. There's literally thousands of these things out there. Cobalt fluoride, different acids that are coming out of the unburned products, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide. The list just seems to go on and on. When I was putting this together, it's like, where do I stop and start? So let's move on to some particulates present. What are particulates? Well, there's very small particles that, unless filtered, are going to be entering our body. These particles are 2.5 microns or less in size. They're too small to be seen with the naked eye. So these particulates are limited to, but not limited to, asbestos, bloodborne pathogen, insulation fibers, lead, mold, concrete dust, bacteria, wood fibers. When we're doing overhaul, and I'm not going to sit here and preach that I've had an SCBA on every time I've done overhaul, because I haven't. They get hot, we get tired, we just want to get the heck out of there, get back to the station and start cleaning stuff up. But the more we look into this, these particles are going to penetrate deep in the lungs, cause a range of health problems long term for us. Short term, you can have burning eyes, runny nose. They're going to go after our heart and lung disease, or heart and lung causing diseases, cancer as well. We just have to get better at this, folks. And you know, we started getting pretty strict on it there in Oski when I was there. It was just a safety factor. Even if the air's testing good, when we're pulling ceilings, we're working in some of these older homes, we're still putting all kinds of particulates into the air. So it's not necessarily the toxic gases that are going to get us if the air monitor is saying good, but these particulates. We'll go ahead and talk about some health risks. Everybody probably knows the difference between acute and chronic, but I wanted to just explain a little bit here. Acute is an exposure that occurs at a short time period. So you get in, you've been exposed, and you get right back out. Chronic, this is a continuous and repeated contact with a toxic substance over an extended period of time, either months or years. Most of us, when we get in the fire service, we make a career out of it. So acute exposures can build up into a chronic exposures. Here's just a quick bullet point on some health risks to firefighters. So we all know that cigarette smoking is bad for us, but as research on cigarette smoke alone has identified over 7,000 chemicals, with 70 of those identified as cancer-causing, even with brief exposure. Okay? It goes on to say that we haven't even scratched the surface to determine all the potentially adverse health effects that may result from exposure to chemicals released from the combustion of a multitude of products in a structure fire. These include plastics, foam, textiles, carpets, wood products, both treated lumber, plywood, flooring, synthetic fabrics, wool, electronics, furniture, household chemicals. You know, the list just goes on and on and on for what we're exposing ourselves to in today's structure fires. Exposure to these smoke toxins can be far more dangerous to human health than mold, asbestos, lead, other contaminants. Respiratory ailments, cardiac hazards, cancers connected with exposure from an environment affected by fire are far greater than those from the past. And what they're talking about the past there is, you know, our building construction and everything else that is going into modern homes now has changed from even, you know, 30 years ago when I first got into the fire service. And you go further back than that, it changed even more. So it's just been a progression of things getting progressively worse for us as firefighters as we go into these atmospheres and have to perform our work, perform our duties. Just a quick snapshot of this is actually a garage fire. It's just one I pulled off the internet. But as you can see, this was a fire that they went in, got it extinguished. As you can see by the walls, the ceiling, tremendous amount of overhaul was done here to make sure fire extension had been curbed. As we look at this picture, we see the dark charred components. We know that all those gases and toxins, particulates that I spoke about earlier in the presentation were present in this fire. So, okay. Particulate exposure leads to around 20,000 premature deaths in America each year. Many of these deaths were caused by soot-related diseases. Data also shows that soot annually causes almost 300,000 asthma attacks and 2 million lost work days due to respiratory problems. If everybody's really honest with themselves, they've probably been working in an overhaul area and had an irritant, you know, go into their system. You knew it. You didn't say nothing other than, wow, this stuff probably isn't good, but we probably worked right through it. Same way with the particulates. you know, it used to be the dirtier we came out, the better it looked for us. It looked like we were really working and doing our job. We need to keep our breathing air clean. Okay, there's not going to be any single gas monitor on the market that's going to detect all the gases present during overhaul. However, your four-gas monitor remains a great tool, but it's only going to work for you if you take it out of its case. If we don't get this stuff in there and use it, we're not going to know what kind of atmosphere we have. You know, if we've got multiple areas of working, you may need to task just one team member to go around and keep monitoring the entire area. If we've got a little more than a room and contents, we need to monitor every area that people are working in. Again, just reiterating here, if you were tasked at a hazmat release as an entry team member, wouldn't that air monitor be one of your first tools you take out of your toolbox? The gas monitors are not going to detect particulate matter, all right? But during overhaul, I can attest that when we're pulling drywall, we're pulling insulation down, we can usually see it in the air, folks. That's way over and above anything that we should be breathing without quality respiratory protection in place. So the only way we can be absolutely certain of quality breathing air during overhaul is to wear our respiratory protection. SCBA, you know, great if you've got some air purifying respirators or particulate masks and you've been fit tested for them. I get it. SCBA is pretty cumbersome, but the long-term effects of us not using these simply are not worth the danger we're putting ourselves into. Your personal health, all right? Being tasked on the overhaul crew sucks on its best day. We need to keep a good mental mindset to get through it. It's that military term, embrace the suck, I believe is what they say. Keep working, get through it. It's not fun, but we can get through this. Good nutrition is going to help us with our personal health. Proper hydration, adequate rest, exercise, including cardio, strength, mobility. And this doesn't mean, you know, we need you to become a gym rat or anything like that, but if you've got people that really don't like to do the gym thing, do a little thinking outside the box. You're all smart people out there. Figure out some different exercises that are going to stimulate the muscle groups that we use during overhaul tactics. Lat pull downs is an example. Lighter weight, but more reps. Okay, we don't need to go crazy with our weight, but we're building endurance by doing more reps. Again, getting those muscles engaged, getting them stretched out. If it's possible and done in a safe manner, incorporate all your PPE and tools into the program. Let's face it, we shouldn't be going into structure fires with our tennis shoes and gym shorts on and ready to go to work. We need to work in the equipment and gear that we're. I guess we need to train in the equipment we're going to be wearing and utilize the tools that we're going to be using. So, like I said, a little outside of the box thinking. We can make this happen, and who knows? You might even enjoy it a little bit. The more people you get involved with it, obviously, we're competitive sorts in the fire service. So it doesn't take long for it to become a bit of a competition, and it should be all done in fun. All right, leadership responsibilities. And this is my opinion, okay? I believe leadership works from the top down and it works from the bottom up. Top-down leadership. Fire Department administration, officers, you should develop well-thought-out SOGs for personnel under your direction. A well-written SOG would include some explanation as to why this thing is in place. Not that standard answer of, well, we've always done it this way and it's the way it's going to be. You're going to get questions on it, but be able to explain it out as to why this SOG or SOP is in place. Officers, you should be reviewing your SOGs on a regular basis and adjust them when necessary. They need to be written to where they can be read and understood by your line personnel. Don't put it in lawyer talk. It is the officer's responsibility to make certain that all staff understand the SOG. So follow up with your people. We still deal with it a lot. You can ask somebody if they understand it, and they nod their head like they do, and then they go right back out and don't follow it. So it's just follow up with them and explaining this stuff and keeping it in, quite honestly, the simplest terms that we can put out there. Administration officers need to continually monitor that SOGs are being followed throughout the organization. If you know, if one crew is not following the SOGs and they're kind of working on their own, and the second crew comes in and they see this, we're going to get into a pattern. Either everybody's going to follow them, or I would venture to guess that everybody's going to take the shortcut and maybe not follow the SOGs. They're put there for a reason, probably because something is screwed up in the past and we're learning from other people's mistakes. But we have to monitor it. We can't be shortcutting these things. All that does is get people hurt, and then we got to answer as to why we weren't following the SOGs. Okay, this is critical to me. All fire department administration and officers must lead by example. All right, you can't be the one going in and saying, guys, you know, we can do this. We can do this a different way here. This'll work. We'll shortcut it. You also need to be willing to listen to suggestions from line personnel. There are better ways of doing things. Just because you're an administration or an officer does not mean you necessarily know everything. Listen to the line personnel. If what they're suggesting you think might work, you know, run it up the chain. Don't use that line, we've always done it this way, and it's the way I learned, it's the way we're going to continue doing it. That serves really nobody's in purpose at all. Line personnel, you're going to be responsible to learn the department SOGs, follow them. Okay, they're there for a reason. Probably because some of us older people have screwed up, and we've got a rule maybe even named after us somewhere. Senior line personnel, you need to assist your junior members in understanding why they're in place. Again, leading by example. This is what I'm talking about, the bottom-up leadership. If a particular SOG is not understood, questions should be asked and answers obtained till the SOG is clearly understood. So line personnel, don't be afraid to ask questions. You always hear it, you know, there are no stupid questions, but sometimes individuals can be a little intimidated by asking questions. They don't want to look, look a little foolish to their peers or something like that. If you have that problem, I'm okay with that. Come talk to me on the side if I'm your officer. And officers, be willing to listen to them and try to work through, get them so they have a full understanding of what they're questioning. Bottom-up responsibilities. Okay, again, I mentioned this, don't shortcut the SOGs. If you find yourself or other team members shortcutting, ask yourself a few of these questions. Why am I or we shortcutting? Is it because we want to get done quicker so we can, go do something more fun? Is it because we're just tired and really don't want to work today? Did we have a late night last night? We were in most of the night. Now we're coming on shift, and it's like, you know what, we'll just do it this way today. Is there a reason for the shortcut? Have we maybe found a better way to do this particular process? It may not be a shortcut. It may be a better way of doing it, but don't just automatically change it. This is where you need to run it up the chain and see if there's a reason that this shortcut might or might not work. And that falls right into C. Am I shortcutting because I'm lazy, or have we really come up with a more efficient method? And then finally, should I run this up the chain to properly affect the change? So as we start to conclude my presentation here, the bottom line is all of us are responsible for making certain that everyone goes home. The toxic environment that we encounter at a routine structure fire has more ways to kill you than any hazardous material response that we're going to go to. And when I say that, it has more ways. We must do a better job at air monitoring, keeping our respiratory protection in place, and when conditions warrant, during overhaul. Along this lines as well, deconning. We have to get better at deconning our gear. We're talking, everybody's in the clean cab thing now, starting to see some of that flow around. Used to be, when I started years ago, the dirty turnout gear was a badge of honor. You didn't dare wash your clothes or your turnout gear because you'd look like the new guy again, or gal. I've heard everything from it's bad luck to wash your gear because every time we wash our gear, we get another structure fire and we're just wasting time, to, again, I don't want to look like the new person on shift, but the gear is in place to protect us. I'm sure nobody out there uses the same philosophy with their clothes that they wear to the station. I hope they don't anyway. Why should the gear that's meant to protect us be the gear that's ultimately killing us? Get the gear washed up, get it cleaned up. Long-term health effects from inhaling the toxic fumes is slowly killing us. Okay, we may not know it right now, but research is telling us this. I think we're fools to not pay attention to research. We have the technology and the knowledge to prevent this from occurring. We just have to do it. Departments literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase us proper respiratory protection and air quality monitors. If we're not going to use it, why are they spending the money, folks? It's just something to think about. We should be using it. If you are, fantastic. Keep up the great work. It's up to each of us to use it. It's up to each of us to make sure that our team members are using it properly. It's up to each of us to report exposures, okay? If we were to hazmat incident, we do medical monitoring quite regularly. How much medical monitoring are we doing after a structure fire? Again, hazmat, we have to keep this stuff. We have to keep medical records going. It can become kind of a problem for us. Is it going to create more paperwork? Yeah. But should we be reporting this? Yeah, we really should be reporting. If we get a good charge of an irritant in our system, not saying you necessarily need to go to the hospital and be checked out, but we know it's out there, folks. The end goal is everyone goes home. Everyone makes it to retirement as healthy as possible. If we're just going to go to work and not make it to retirement, why are we doing this? I know we're doing it to help people, right? We need to help ourselves first. That wraps up my presentation. I can't hear anybody, so I don't know if there's any questions. I think they were going to do a
this
Q&A.
Is Steve. So if you have questions, please type them in the questions or the chat box, and I will just go ahead and read them off for Mark, and he can answer them. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now.
Silence is golden. You sure I even had anybody out there listening to this crazy thing?
We've got about 30-some participants, Mark. So Chris Showalter,
no, that's fine.
And I will answer this question. He said, will this presentation be available? I don't know, Mark, did you agree to share this presentation with us to have it available?
Yes, I did, yeah. I want to get this out. Yes, the presentation, short answer is yes, presentation is available.
Okay. Yep. So Chris, to answer your question, what we're planning on doing is we'll send out an email to all of the participants next week sometime and let them know. We'll keep the presentations on feed loop, so you will be able to go out and get those presentations. We also will have the recordings of the sessions that we were able to record, and we'll have those available. So, yep. Other questions? Okay, so Mike Ryan, I see in the chat, Mike Ryan says, do you recommend face shields with cartridge filters for overhaul?
I really hate to hesitate to recommend anything. I think that's something departments could look at. Obviously, it's going to be a greater expense. We've got SCBA, we're usually all fit tested for SCBA. It's going to be easier on the firefighters and your team members if you went to cartridge filters. We used to carry just the particulate masks, like the N95 style. If we got into really dusty stuff, we'd obviously use it for grain bins and different things as well. But I think it's just something that departments need to look at on their own and decide what's going to work best for them. I just hesitate trying to say, yeah, by gosh, this is the way to do it.
Okay. That looks like all of the questions that I've seen for now. So we're running right up to 10 o'clock. We'll give it about another minute or so.